Welcome to In the Zone. Yes, I'm back in the zone. And we just wrapped up a week of the NFL. And there has been an outrage of questionable calls. These calls fall under the guidelines of roughing the passer. One look, Micha Parsons rips NFL. It sucks, Cowboys star says of bias. So just what does Micha Parsons has to say? Well, let's get into it right now. He goes on and says, how can we play football with this bleep? Says Cowboy star Micha Parsons, joining the voice of those outraged by the league's overprotection of QBs. NFL speak up. The NFL is terrible. Change the rules or just make the league 7-on-7. Micha Parsons leads the NFL in doing damages to offenses. And now the second-year Dallas Cowboys star is taking the lead in trying to do damage to what he believes is the league's bias against defensive players. I told you, Parsons tweeted on Monday night after the end of a long NFL weekend filled with odd calls that have the league been accused of overprotecting quarterbacks. These are game-changing calls. Man, it sucks. Parsons did indeed tell us all Monday long, starting with how O-linemen holding guys like him isn't called, ending with him joining the national outrage over the overprotection of quarterbacks being hit. Let me pause right there. I can almost guarantee you right there, Micha Parsons most likely will be fined, because not only are the quarterbacks overprotected, the officials are also overprotected from being criticized about the job or lack thereof that they do. Since I'm a podcaster, I'm not under no such order. And yes, I still say, regardless of how you showed two different videos of the sack last night, which was in essence, I think, should have been a fumble, and they showed a video of a Miami Dolphins player, I believe it was, sacking someone, saying this is the incorrect way and this is the correct way. Yes, I say that call last night sucked too. No, I'm not a Kansas City Chiefs fan, but I'm not a Chiefs hater. So let's get that straight right there. He goes on and says, how can we play football with this blank? He wrote, NFL speak up. The NFL is terrible. Change the rules to just make the league 7-on-7. The campaign from Parsons, the star of the 4-1 Cowboys and arguably the NFL's best defensive player, began when he posted a photo of him being held illegally in Dallas's Week 5 win at the Rams. He won't call this, but he'll call it roughing the passer, LOL. Can we focus in and protect defensive players? Parsons wrote. Parsons at that moment might have been referring to teammate Dante Fowler Jr. getting called for a roughing the passer on Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford. Or Parsons could be upset about the Tom Brady debacle in which the refs babied him on a routine sack, helping the Bucs beat the Falcons. Or Parsons could be upset about the Derek Carr farce in which the refs punished the Chiefs' Chris Jones for roughing, even though Jones had already stolen the ball from the Raiders QB. The crazy Brady call caused Falcons coach Arthur Smith to tell the ref that's a blank blank. The crazy Carr caused ESPN analyst Troy Aikman during the game live to insist that the NFL rulemakers change the bylaws so as to take the dresses off the quarterbacks. Now let me tell you something. 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, Jack Lambert made this statement and didn't get no drawback. Of course, we didn't have social media like we do either. He said, you may as well put the quarterbacks in lipstick, lace, and a short skirt and put a sign on them saying, do not touch. That statement that Troy Aikman made, some viewed it as misogynistic, or whatever that word is, or whatever you want to call it. Dealing with this cancel culture and this woke society, that comment didn't come across as a very popular statement. Some said it was sexist. I personally don't see how. I stand behind Troy Aikman on that. Troy Aikman himself is a former quarterback, Hall of Famer. I believe he's right. Some bylaws do need to be changed. And yes, I'm going to jump on the Troy Aikman bandwagon. Take the dresses off the quarterbacks. Parsons has earned his powerful voice as he had 2 sacks against the Rams while nursing a groin injury. The Cowboys hope would be fine for the Sunday night showdown at the Eagles, bringing his 2022-23 total to 6 through 5 weeks and making him among the all-time NFL leaders when it comes to early career sacks. So, I would like for you to weigh in on what do you think of some of these calls over the weekend. Fox Rules honcho Mike Pereira had the perfect response to Monday's Chiefs-Raiders officiating debacle. If you woke up this morning and checked the score on Monday Night Football after returning to Earth from a months-long deep space expedition, you would probably think it was a classic 30. You probably thought it was a classic, a 30-29 AFC West shootout under the lights at Arrowhead. This is what primetime October football is meant to be, right? Unfortunately, the box score tells only a fraction of the story. Yes, the game came down to the wire. Yes, Travis Kelce went thermonuclear. But the game will be remembered, if it's remembered at all, for being one of the worst displays of NFL officiating this century. It all began with a pair of roughing the passer calls, or, in the case of Mahomes, a no call that had half of Missouri bursting a blood vessel. With a stadium full of choked out dudes in cheap sports coats and backwards visors calling for blood, the refs were rattled zebras in the headlights, you might say. Instead of sticking to their guns and calling a consistent game according to their interpretation of the rules, however, they started issuing some of the worst makeup calls you will ever see. An unmitigated disaster from tip to tail. In fact, it got so bad that Fox Rules analyst Mike Pereira even had to call in from the bar on to offer his thoughts on the chaos as it unfolded. Says, I'm sitting at a bar drinking Tito's with Chiefs fans yelling at me. I do not blame them. This tweet was brought to you by Tito's Handmade Vodka. In all seriousness though, when you're getting called out by one of your biggest shields who is just sitting at the bar trying to mind his own business on an off day, you know you're effing up. And right now the NFL is effing up. The pair of cheap hits and ensuing concussion to Tua Tagovailoa has plunged the NFL's concussion protocol and roughing the passer enforcement into anarchy. On Sunday, Teddy Bridgewater was pulled from the Dolphins game against the Jets after one snap, despite not exhibiting concussion symptoms. Then, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers were the beneficiaries of a phantom RTP, translation, roughing the passer call, on a hit not even 1 million as vicious as the one Josh Tupou put on Tagovailoa 2 Thursdays ago. Then there was Monday night. All of this is reactionary. All of this smacks of desperation. Right now the NFL and its officials are trying to respond to the outrage instead of getting out in front of it. They're cowering to the fans and the hot media narrative of the week, and as a result cannot sustain even a faint modicum of consistency or logic. If Pierre can see that through his fifth mule of the night, Journey blaring on the jukebox, then surely Roger Goodell can too. So yes, there is an outrage, there is an outcry, and the officials are getting the brunt of it, and to some extent, rightfully so. The NFL has to do something. Otherwise, this is going to be a season remembered only for one thing, and one thing only. The bad officiating, protecting the quarterbacks, and the overreaction to situations. Anyway, you're in the zone with Anthony. I have more to come, so you stay tuned and keep it locked right here in the zone with yours truly, Anthony Smith. Welcome back to In the Zone with Anthony, and we're still looking at a weekend of bad officiating. Let's just call it like it was. In some cases, in the words of Charles Barkley, it was just terrible. Just terrible officiating. How can you call that sack on Tom Brady roughing the passer? That was just a terrible call. If you look at the video, you can plainly see that when they spun around, Tom Brady's hip was actually on the defensive player, so it wasn't like he got slammed to the ground. So that was just a terrible call, just terrible. I don't know if that was a good impression of Charles Barkley, but you get the picture. It was terrible. Anyway, the NFL world is calling for a referee to be fired Sunday. The NFL world is calling for a veteran referee to be fired on Sunday afternoon. It's tough to blame the fans for feeling that way too. Fans are furious with a terrible roughing the passer penalty called against the Falcons. The penalty called on defensive lineman Grady Jarrett extended what could be the Bucs' game-winning drive. You can't have mistakes like that, especially in that game-deciding decision. Fans are calling for the referee to be fired. Jerome Boger, the referee in the Bucs game, just made the worst call of his early NFL season. NFL will need to offer an explanation on this bull jive call. That was a textbook sack, and it was penalized. Falcons got holes, one fan wrote. Disgusting, horrific roughing the passer call. Jerome Boger should be fired and banned from all levels of football. Truly horrendous, another fan added. How is that roughing the passer? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Yep. Jerome Boger strikes again, one fan added. Atlanta native Jerome Boger can't come back home after that call. Stay in Tampa, bro, one fan added. Another fan said in a tweet, absolute bull, and you know the rest. The Bucs ended up holding off the Falcons, thanks in part to that crazy roughing the passer penalty. The NFL will have to answer for this one. Chances are the NFL won't answer for this one. So I guess it's safe to say it's time to move on, because we can talk about that However, though, in still sticking with the NFL and some more on the officiating, fans at Arrowhead Stadium credited with giving the Chiefs a boost and rattling officials. This story courtesy the Kansas City Star. The roughing the passer penalty on Chiefs defensive lineman Chris Jones seemed to be a huge boost for the Raiders in Monday night's game, but it turned out to be an edge for Kansas City. Had the flag not been thrown, the Chiefs would have had the ball at the Las Vegas 40-yard line, while trailing by 10 points late in the first half. Instead, the Raiders kept possession and kicked the field goal. So how did the play end up giving the Chiefs an edge? Referee Carl Sheffers and his crew drew the ire of Chiefs fans who loudly booed the decision. This wasn't a brief show of emotion. Fans kept it up until Matthew Wright made a 59-yard field goal for the Chiefs to end the first half. Chiefs fans turned the boos to cheers in the second half with one notable exception, when the officials were involved. Did the fans rile the officials? CBS Sports' Will Brinson seemed to think so. Many others agreed with Brinson, including more national pundits, and Chiefs fans in particular loved it. Here is a very small sample of what was being said. Del Farrar at NFL_Del Farrar. When stadium security informs you that there will be nobody to escort you to the bus after the game, gotta respect the Chiefs fans for booing for 10 straight minutes. That from at C Lucy 35. Some more tweets. Danny Parkins at Danny Parkins. Arrowhead has these refs shook. This is awesome. Justin Baker at Justin_Baker 88. Sheffers sounded afraid when he turned Mike on to make the block in back flag pickup. 24/7 High School Hoops at 24/7 HS Hoops. The Bulls are giving the ref Carl Sheffers. Chiefs fans, bro is about to cry on the job. That ref in the passer got these fans riled up. So those were some of the tweets to be shared there. So Chiefs get a boost. Peter Schrager, who also works for Fox Sports and was with Inside the NFL, mentioned the crowd's impact on Good Morning Football. I think the catalyst might have been the penalty and the way the crowd reacted, Schrager said Tuesday morning. So if you're watching right now and you're saying, I didn't see the game, this was an egregious call. And the reaction from the Arrowhead crowd was vitriol. And we're talking 10 straight minutes of booing to the point where I felt like a switch was flipped for the Chiefs as a whole, and it was almost like the catalyst needed to wake them out of their slumber. I don't think I've ever seen Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes as mad. I don't know if it's because all the chipping back and forth. Andy Reid seemed mad. There was a different energy. I almost feel like in this game the story is the roughing the passer, but it's also the way that she's responded and the way the Arrowhead crowd lifted them. Very rarely am I the one to be like, well, the crowd won us that game. The crowd really was a factor. There was offense, defense, special teams, and the Arrowhead crowd that actually aided this victory. So there you have how the Chiefs got their boost from the crowd. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shift gears here because not only did we just wrap up the NFL season, the NFL week, but we also wrapped up the college football week. However, there is one story of interest that I want to take a look at. And that story in particular still has to do with the NFL. But it is the power rankings. Are the Eagles getting disrespected. The Eagles won ugly in Week 5, but guess what? They still won. That's what separates contenders from pretenders. The ability to win games you could have easily lost should not be underrated in the NFL, a league that still feels largely unpredictable 5 weeks in. But will the Birds get credit for gutting through numerous injuries and winning in enemy territory? Let's scour 7 different national outlets to find out what they're saying about the still undefeated Birds. NFL.com last week ranked number 1. This week, number 2, -1 in the rankings. The Eagles keep answering the bell in different ways. Win a shootout, check. Blow a team off the field, check. Rally from multiple scores down, check. Win a close one in a hostile environment, got that too. Sunday's 20-17 triumph at Arizona came with a dollop of good fortune. Kyler Murray's premature slide short of the first down marker set up an ugly miss by a temporary kicker to close the game. But you tend to get these kinds of breaks, even breaks when things are good or going good. Every win isn't easy, Jalen Hurts said. Personally, I have mixed emotions about the game itself, but we find a way. The Eagles are 5-0 for just the 3rd time in franchise history. USA Today. Last week, number 1. This week, still number 1. A big reason for their 5-0 start, the ability to sprint out to big leads before putting teams away. Philadelphia's 92 second quarter points are the most in NFL history through 5 games and 68 more than their opponents have. Philly has not trailed in the second half all season. ESPN. Last week, number 3. This week, still number 3. As the only remaining undefeated team, the Eagles are in good shape, but the recent rash of injuries to their offensive front is worth monitoring. Tackle Jordan Mailata, right shoulder. Center Jason Kelce, left ankle. And guards Landon Dickerson, leg, and Isaac Samalo, ankle, are all banged up to varying degrees heading into Sunday's divisional game against the 4-1 Cowboys. None of the injuries appear long-term at this point, but the Eagles will need it to stay that way to keep their dynamic offense humming. Sports Illustrated. Last week, number 1. This week, 3. While mind-boggling throws are the norm now, it's worth looking back at Jalen Hurts' game against the Cardinals and see the fluidity with which he's escaping pressure and finding open receivers with expert ball placement. The latter part sometimes makes balls seem like they're just lame duck in the air, when in reality they're down and away on purpose. The only place where a good pass catcher can find it. The Athletic. Last week, number 1. This week, number 2. This Power Rankings entry was a proposed trade. Walter Football. Last week, 3. This week, 3. The Eagles look like their perfect 17-0 aspirations would be over when both Landon Dickerson and Jason Kelce were injured in Arizona. Both ended up returning, but not before Arizona was able to creep back into the game because the Eagles didn't score with 3 offensive linemen sideline. Sporting News. Last week, number 1. This week, number 1. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles' offense cooled off a little in Arizona with a few situational mistakes, but their defense did plenty to contain Kyler Murray from having enough response. They avoided looking ahead to the first Cowboys showdown next Sunday night. I see, it's disrespect week. Understand that the 2017 win over a weird, maybe iffy Cardinals team doesn't inspire a ton of confidence, but the Eagles getting zero credit for beating a 2-win team on the road with, at one point, 60% of their offensive line out, while the Bills get credit for smoking a QB in his first career start at home. It's curious to say the least. This particular writer says the Cowboys are going to beat the Eagles on Sunday Night Football, and that'll put them back atop some of these rankings. or maybe it won't. Who knows? Anyway, the Eagles' average power rankings across these 7 outlets all season long at the bottom of these posts. They will definitely be tracked. Now, the writer goes on and says that the Eagles will win this game against the Cowboys. My question is, how healthy is that line? Because it all starts up front. You have coming in for Dallas 3 main cogs up front there, or one in the linebacker position. You got Micha Parsons, that's where it all starts with. DeMarcus Ware, Dante Fowler Jr. Any kinks in your armor, and that Cowboys defense will expose it. Your line better be 100%, or it's going to be a long day. And Dallas, once again, boasts the best single individual defensive player in the NFL. Not taken away from Aaron Donald, but right now, Micha Parsons is that man who has a combination of strength, size, and quickness. You see what he did during the offseason in the 40-yard dash. He actually outran Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is known as the cheetah. You outrun the cheetah. That's pretty fast. If you're a defensive line coach or you're a defensive coordinator, that makes for a pretty scary scouting report. Can Micha Parsons run down a Jalen Hurts? That's all why they play the game. So while one tends to think that the Eagles will beat the Cowboys, I'm going to go on record and say the Cowboys will do enough to win this game by 3. You're in the zone with Anthony. When I come back, we will take a look at college football rankings and how teams got there. So stay tuned to In the Zone. This is yours truly, Anthony Smith. Hope you're locked in. Welcome back to In the Zone. Yours truly, Anthony Smith. And as I promised, and I'll probably close out with this, college football week 7. Looking at the rankings and the movements that took place this here courtesy of Yahoo Sports. Yes, we covered all. NFL, NCAA, even some high school football. I just haven't gotten around to it as I am in the midst of a move. And I mean, it's more than just a move. It is a move and some more moves. Be getting married this weekend, and next week you probably won't get a podcast from me. I'll be in Vegas honeymooning with a very beautiful lady. Yes, someone has captured and stolen my heart. So we always use the term, I'm going to jump the broom. I may step across the broom, but there will be a broom of some sort. So yes, I will be getting married this weekend. Getting excited as the days is getting closer, getting stuff packed up, and just elated, can't wait. So yes, this Saturday, I will be saying, I do. Thank you very much. I appreciate the applause. Thank you. Hope to see all of you there. Anyway, there was plenty of movement in the latest AP Top 25 poll, even though Week 6 didn't see any top 10 teams lose. UCLA improved to 5-0 with a huge Pac-12 conference win over Utah. The Bruins jumped 7 spots from number 18 to number 11 in the new AP poll. That was tied for the highest climb in this week's poll with Mississippi State. The Bulldogs defeated Arkansas 40-17 and brought it up from number 23 to number 16. Mississippi State's upcoming schedule gets a lot tougher with matchups against number 22 Kentucky and number 3 Alabama over the next 2 weeks. There was some movement in the top 10 too. Ohio State leapfrogged Alabama from number 3 to number 2. Clemson beat Boston College 31-3 and climbed ahead of Michigan to number 4. There are two huge games between top 10 teams Saturday. Number 3 Alabama goes on the road to play number 6 Tennessee, and number 5 Michigan hosts number 10 Penn State. The teams that dropped the most in this week's AP poll were Utah, number 11 to number 20, and Kentucky, number 13 to number 22. Texas also returned to the top 25 at number 23 after its historic 49-0 win over Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. The Sun Belt Conference made an appearance too, with undefeated James Madison 5-0 coming in at number 25. So here's the latest AP Top 25 poll entering week number 7. Number 1, Georgia at 6-0. Number 2, Ohio State at 6-0. Number 3, Alabama at 6-0. Number 4, Clemson at 6-0. Number 5, Michigan at 6-0. Number 6, Tennessee at 5-0. Number 7, USC 6-0. Number 8, Oklahoma State at 5-0. Number 9, Ole Miss at 6-0. Number 10, Penn State at 5-0. Number 11, UCLA at 6-0. Number 12, Oregon at 5-1. Number 13 is steady climbing up in the rankings from the Big 12. TCU at 5-0. Number 14, Wake Forest at 5-1. Number 15, North Carolina State, the Wolfpack. Don't turn your back on the Wolfpack. You might wind up in a body bag at 5-1. Number 16, Mississippi State at 5-1. Number 17, Kansas State at 5-1. Number 18, Syracuse still holding ground at 5-0. Number 19, Kansas holding steady even after their loss in a closely contested game and after losing their starting quarterback Jalen Daniels. They come in still at number 19 at 5-1. Number 20, Utah at 4-2. Number 21, hanging around in those rankings, wanting to be relevant, moving on to the Big 12 after this year, Cincinnati at 5-1. Number 22, Kentucky, proving that, hey, we're not just a basketball school, we are a football school as well. They're coming in at 4-2. Back in the rankings, number 23, Texas, after a historical beatdown of the Sooner with no Boomer. Number 24, and they're back to playing football, Illinois, 5-1. And from the Sun Belt, James Madison at 25. So for those of you who are looking to place your bets now, here are some opening spreads for each Week 7 game featuring one or more teams ranked in the top 25 with odds via DraftKings Sportsbook, Saturday, October the 15th. Hey, that's my wedding day. Anyway, number 10, Penn State at number 15, Michigan at -7. Number 19, Kansas at Oklahoma. And Kansas has a -7.5. Iowa State at number 23, Texas, and Texas is getting -16.5. Auburn at number 9, Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is getting -14.5. Minnesota. Wait a minute, let me go back. Actually, that is saying in the Kansas-Oklahoma game, and I guess that's because it's on the road, they're giving Oklahoma -7.5. Okay. That's what you call an ultimate disrespect. That's what I call an ultimate want to say it. It's an ultimate disrespect, but it's going to also be an ultimate disappointment if you're a Sooner fan. That's my analogy of that. Ole Miss is getting, once again, number 9 Ole Miss is getting 14.5. Number 3 Alabama is getting 7.5 as they venture into Tennessee. Minnesota is getting minus 6.5 at number 24 Illinois. Number 8 Oklahoma State at TCU. TCU is getting minus 3.5. Number 15 North Carolina State and number 18 Syracuse. And number 18 Syracuse, the line is on them at minus 3.5. Vanderbilt at number 1 Georgia, and this looks to be a massacre according to the betting line. Georgia at minus 13.5. Then you got number 4. You got number 4 Clemson minus 4 at Florida State. Number 16 Mississippi State getting minus 7 at number 22 Kentucky. And number 7 USC at number 20 Utah. And the odds maker is going with number 20 Utah at 3.5. So there you have the top 25 layout and some of the betting lines. As far as some more college football news, here's another report and update. As I mentioned earlier, how Kansas is holding it strong at number 19, lost their quarterback. And the report, Kansas's QB Jalen Daniels out for season with shoulder injury. So maybe that's why Oklahoma is getting some love. Kansas quarterback Jalen Daniels reportedly won't return to the field in 2022. According to the Lawrence Journal-World, Daniels suffered a separated right throwing shoulder on Saturday against TCU and is out for the rest of the season. Daniels was injured late in the second quarter when he was tackled while scrambling to the right sideline. His right shoulder hit the ground first and directly absorbed not only his own weight, but the weight of the defender. Daniels had been one of the breakout stars of the first half of the college football season as Kansas started the season 5-0 before losing to the Horned Frogs in Week 6. Daniels led an exciting Kansas offense that's averaging nearly 40 points per game, and KU's early season success helped bring ESPN's College Game Day pregame show to launch for the first time for a football game ahead of the matchup with TCU. He finishes the season 78 of 117 passing for 1,072 yards, 11 touchdowns, and an interception. Daniels is also the team's second leading rusher with 53 carries for 341 yards and 5 scores. Daniels was replaced by Jason Bean in the second half of the 38-31 loss to TCU, and Bean will take over as the starter in Daniels' absence. Bean threw 4 second-half TDs in the loss and was the team's starting quarterback in 9 games in 2021 before an injury opened the door for Daniels to start late in the season. Kansas visits Oklahoma in Week 6 before heading to Baylor in Week 7, and then hosting currently undefeated Oklahoma State at home the first weekend of November. The Jayhawks need just one win over the final 6 games of the season to ensure a bowl berth for the first time since going 8-5 and winning the Insight Bowl in 2008. Current Kansas coach Lance Leipold is the 6th Jayhawk coach since that bowl appearance. So we wish the best for Jalen Daniels in his recovery, but we also wish the best for this KU football team as they progress through the season. And I think that they are still in good hands with Jason Bean, as he proved that he is capable of leading that team. And just like, I'll say it like this, just like how the Dallas Cowboys are rallying around one Cooper Rush, I believe that this KU team will rally around Jason Bean. And as this team comes together, I believe that even though they are going in as a 7-point underdog into Oklahoma, I think they will come out with a double-digit victory over Oklahoma in Norman this weekend. Well, that will about wrap this up for me on this segment of In the Zone. I hope you have enjoyed being in the zone. And I will be back with some more the rest of this week, or with what I can come up with. But Let me know what your comments are. Tell me how you feel about this, about the topics that have ensued on this podcast today. I know I was heavy on the officials, and rightfully so. They need to be held accountable. They shouldn't be exempt from criticism. If they make bonehead, stupid plays, stupid calls, it should be talked about. It should be exposed. We expose players. We talk about the mistakes that players make, and we talk about the mistakes that coaches make in their decisions. Why is it that you get fined for talking about officials? They're just as much as part of the game as the players are. And if the players can take criticism, if the coaches can take criticism, well, by God, I think officials ought to be able to take criticism too. Because in one way or the other, they still have a way of affecting the game. Anyway, you've been listening to In the Zone with yours truly, Anthony Smith. Have a blessed day. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm out.